You have been told you feel too much, too
Why is he
sensitive,
not eating anything?
that you take everything to heart. You have half believed it for years, but watch what happens in the room. You are not drowning in feeling. You are reading something nobody else can see. And that is a very different thing. There is a kind of person who has always been here. They go by different names in different centuries. The cunning woman, the hermit, the witness, the seer, the exile. The world has tried more than once to be rid of them. The world has never managed it. If you carry one of these patterns, you already know. Today, the seer. Not the one who feels the room, the one who reads it, and who has spent a lifetime being told those are the same thing. Here is the explanation you have been handed. You are an empath, a highly sensitive person. Your nervous system runs hotter than most. You feel what others feel, and you feel it too strongly, and that is why a crowded room leaves you hollowed out. It is why a good evening can still cost you 2 days of silence to recover from. There is truth in this. I want to give it its due before we take it apart. Sensory processing sensitivity is a real, measurable trait. Some people register more of what is around them and register it more deeply. If you are one of them, the exhaustion is not imagined. The cost is real. You have been paying it your whole life. So the explanation is not wrong. It accounts for the tiredness. It accounts for why you need solitude the way other people need food. It even accounts for the way a stranger's grief can arrive in your chest as if it were your own. But notice what it does with all of that. It files the whole thing under feeling. It decides the problem is that you feel too much, too deeply, too easily. That the dial is simply turned up too high and the work of your life is to turn it down. You have probably tried to turn it down. You were told to protect your energy, to build better boundaries, to stop letting the world in. Some of it helped a little, most of it missed entirely, because the thing you kept trying to dampen was never the problem, and some quiet part of you has always known that. So watch what actually happens in the second it happens. You walk into a room, and within moments something has already told you where the trouble sits. Who is angry with whom? What is not being said? The grudge that has been building quietly for weeks that nobody has named. You did not feel your way to any of that. You saw it. You read the room like a page before a word was spoken. And feeling cannot read a page. Feeling floods. It overwhelms and it blurs. What you do is the opposite of blurred. It is precise. You name the thing nobody has admitted yet, and months later you turn out to have been right. That is not a heightened emotion. That is perception operating at a level most people never reach. Ask it plainly. When have you ever been undone by simply feeling a lot? You have not. What undoes you is knowing, seeing the ending while everyone else is still enjoying the beginning, watching a person reveal exactly who they are while the whole table smiles and misses it. The empath story cannot hold this. The empath story cannot hold this. It describes a mood you soak up. It cannot explain the accuracy. It cannot explain how you knew, cleanly and early, a thing you had no evidence for and no permission to say. Here is the sharper question, the one beneath the one you came in with. What if you were never overwhelmed by how much you feel? What if you have always been overwhelmed by how much you see and by having nowhere on earth to put it? That question has a name attached to it. It is very old, and it has been waiting for you. What the ancient world called the seer, Carl Jung would later describe as introverted intuition running at full capacity. An I-dominant cognition. The INFJ's dominant function, not a feeling, a form of sight. The mind that reads the pattern beneath the surface and arrives at the whole before it can show its working. The Greeks gave this figure a face. They called her Cassandra, given true sight, and cursed so that no one would believe her. This is the seer. And naming it is not the relief it first sounds like, because the sight was never the wound. The wound is what you did with it for 30 years. You were handed a faculty of perception and told it was an excess of emotion. So you set about managing the wrong thing. You apologized for your clarity. You softened true perceptions into feelings so they would be allowed at the table. You learned to distrust the one instrument in you that was working perfectly. I want you to sit with that for a moment. The exhaustion you have carried was never the cost of feeling. It was the cost of translation, of taking something you saw clearly and converting it, in real time, into something acceptable to say, of seeing the end of a friendship and smiling through the dinner anyway. That labour has a name too. It is the seer's tax, and you have paid it at every table you have ever sat at. This is the shadow side, and it is worth naming plainly. When the seer's sight is not understood, it does not disappear. It turns inward. It becomes the mind that will not stop, the pattern reading that runs all night, the certainty about how things will go which you cannot switch off and cannot prove. Left unnamed, perception curdles into anxiety. You were not anxious by nature. You were a seer with no permission to see, and the sight had nowhere to go but round and round inside you. And here is the part the empath story could never have given you. If the tiredness is the cost of translation, then it is not a fixed trait you are stuck with. It is a habit built under pressure. The sight was never the problem. What exhausted you was the apology for it, the constant work of softening what you saw so it would be allowed at the table. That is the part you can finally put down. Tending this pattern does not mean feeling less. It means trusting what you see. It means finding the few rooms and the few people where it does not have to be softened to be spoken. Consider what this faculty was always for. A seer is not built for comfort. A seer is built for early warning. You are the one who feels the ground shift a season before anyone notices the weather change. In an older world, this was not a defect to be soothed. It was a function the group depended on. The one who saw the danger on the horizon. The one who knew which stranger not to trust. The one consulted before the decision, not comforted after it went wrong. You carry that same office now, in a world that has forgotten it has a use for it. That is the deeper ache beneath the tiredness. Not that you see too much. That you see clearly and are asked again and again to pretend you do not. You have spent years being handled as a problem when you were, the whole time, an instrument. And an instrument that is never trusted is eventually set down, even by the person who holds it. That is the quiet tragedy of the unnamed seer. You went deaf to your own knowing because the knowing kept costing you. This is what changes when the pattern is named, not the sight. The sight was never broken. What changes is your relationship to it. You stop treating your clearest perceptions as symptoms. You stop reaching for the apology before the observation has even left your mouth. So return to where we began. The next time someone tells you that you feel too much, you will know what to do with it. You do not have to argue. You can simply hear it correctly. They are describing your sight in the only language they have for it. You feel deeply, yes, but that was never the headline. You see clearly. That is the headline. It always was. And a person who sees clearly does not need to become smaller. They need to stop pretending they cannot see. If this has landed somewhere it needed to land, then you may already know what comes next. There are 7 Sigma INFJ archetypes, and each one carries a different gift, a different burden, a different mythic responsibility. The link in the description will take you to a free assessment that reveals yours. It takes about 3 minutes. The answer tends to land harder than people expect. And if you want to keep walking these threads with me into the deeper psychology of the Sigma INFJ, into the archetypes the world has forgotten how to name, subscribe. There are far older and stranger things still to uncover. Until next time, find your power, know your myth,